They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and sometimes these brief freeze frames of history can provide us with a great deal of valuable information. We can see with our own eyes the conditions, the clothing, the people, and yes, sometimes the horrors within photographs. It's therefore unsurprising that some photographs in particular have become somewhat famous and will certainly stand the test of time, showing us small pieces of history contained within a single shot. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be looking at 3 historical photographs and the stories that lie behind them. Soldiers eaten by crocodiles during World War II, Battle of Ramree Island. Arguably one of the largest conflicts to grace our history books was from 1939 to 1945. Taught in schools globally are the individual battles, the conditions in the trenches, different combat techniques, and the dangers of political instability dating back to the Weimar Republic, or even as far back as the Kaiserreich. This one piece of history is perhaps more accurately described as a jigsaw of history, one big conflict comprised of smaller battles, wins, and losses. Today we are going to look at just one of these jigsaw pieces, the Battle of Ramree Island, or Operation Matador, and see just how the famous photos from the event came to be. Ramree Island is part of the Rakhine state, separated from the rest of the mainland by a thin stretch of water, just 160 yards wide. At the time of the battle, which was held from February 14th to the 22nd, 1945, this island was under the control of the Imperial Japanese Army, following the invasion of Burma in 1942. What perhaps stands out about this battle are the casualties, though in a more specific cause of fatalities than one might think. Several casualties within this battle were claimed to be the result of crocodile attacks. British soldiers who fought in the battle claimed that the crocodiles native to the island's swamps had been trapping the Japanese soldiers and attacking them in the evening. Bruce Wright, an outdoorsman and naturalist, became most known for his experience taking part within this battle, where he described the horrors of not only the man-made warfare, but of these attacks, audible in the night. In his book, Wildlife Sketches Near and Far, which he published 17 years after the battle, he wrote, "The scattered rifle shots in the pitch-black swamp, punctured by the screams of wounded men crushed in the jaws of huge reptiles." Others, in reports spoken to the BBC, spoke of the Japanese soldiers choosing to seek refuge in the mangrove swamps sooner than they would surrender. Some claimed that more than 1,000 soldiers entered these waters, and Robert Duff, a veteran of the 26th Division, said that only a handful came out alive. According to these reports, the Battle of Ramree Island would be the sole most severe animal attack we have on record. However, these accounts have had some holes poked into them over the years. The British Burma Star Association does suggest that yes, there were crocodile attacks, but makes it clear that there were perhaps 20 survivors of a single attack and 900 soldiers attempting to defend their lives within the swamp. This significantly reduces the scale of the attack, allowing it to fall in line more so with the expectations laid out by zoologists. The idea of there being thousands of crocodiles lurking and feasting within this battle is largely considered to be implausible by modern-day scholars and zoologists, as these swamps would present a far too limited ecosystem for these crocodiles to survive in without the presence of soldiers. Despite military historians dismissing these claims on a number of occasions, this story is cemented as a piece of wartime history, with this crocodile attack even being reported in the Guinness Book of World Records. The truth is that we do not have definitive answers as to what happened between the soldiers and the crocodiles out on Ramree Island in 1945. After all, there is only so much a photograph can tell you. Operation Wandering Soul. The difficulties of wartime are complex. Not only are the actions taken horrendous and the conditions soldiers are subjected to terrifying, but the constant development of combat and strategies means what comes next in conflict can be far from predictable. One famous example of combat that strayed from the weapons alike was Operation Wandering Soul, a campaign that took place throughout the Vietnam conflict. Psychological warfare is anything intending to bring down the morale and support of the opposition. These often induced feelings of hopelessness and fear, introducing mental and emotional battles to the field alongside the physical side of conflict. These non-combat techniques can be information and messages discrediting the opponent's leader, or it could be far more twisted. One famous use of psychological warfare is Operation Wandering Soul. The US forces made eerie recordings, mixing sounds and voices together, aiming to emulate messages from deceased Viet Cong soldiers. These eerie messages called for fighting to end, for the soldiers to avoid the same fate, and announced that these voices were from the deceased. The tape earned the name Ghost Tape No. 10 and was played after nightfall in areas where Viet Cong soldiers were known to be. These messages were delivered through hidden loudspeakers from patrol boats and even via infantry that made it over enemy lines. Between the number of ways these messages were being played, the volume at which they were played, and their sound carrying through networks of underground tunnels, it was difficult to dismiss these messages. The Vietnamese culture and folklore places great significance on the spiritual world. It's believed that unless a person is buried in their homeland, their soul will be left to wander Earth aimlessly. Some reports describe families looking for deceased loved ones, aiming to give them a proper burial. Furthermore, the Ghost Tape No. 10 named some of the ghosts present in Vietnamese folklore, with those with more malicious histories allegedly being used to encourage soldiers to take their own lives. Ghost Tape No. 10 did see moderate success when a tiger roar was added into the tape following a confirmation of tiger attacks upon Viet Cong soldiers. It was reported that following this particular recording, 150 soldiers allegedly left their positions. Despite a number of defections, ultimately these ghost tapes were known to be artificial and did not work in entirely the manner that was planned. However, a somewhat common response to these tapes was to fire weapons towards the sound, consequently revealing hidden positions to the United States. Hiroshima and Nagasaki before and after the bombs. Nuclear weaponry has been directly responsible for a staggering number of fatalities, with an estimated 770 million lives being credited to such weapons. It's no doubt a terrifying subject matter, and is much more frightening when these theoretical discussions turn to genuine historical events. It was not until 2021 that the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons came into effect in the United States, and yet the consequences of powerful weaponry have been evident for decades. In 1945, the United States released an atomic device over Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th. Between the two attacks, the death toll is estimated to be between 129,000 and 226,000 people, with a large percentage of those numbers being civilians. This event had devastating consequences upon the cities, and to this day, this is the only time that nuclear weapons have been used within armed conflict. Throughout this warfare, the threats of nuclear conflict were present, though the knowledge of the mutually assured destruction that would follow prevented the use of it. The use of this weapon over Hiroshima and Nagasaki was initially intended to force Japan to surrender, preventing any more fatalities within Allied countries. The Allied powers being Great Britain, France, the United States, the Soviet Union, and China, with the exception of periods where France was under German occupation. However, along with these aims came the declaration of power. These devices provided a status to the US, showing the world and those in positions of power, regardless as to which side they were fighting for during the conflict, that the US had nuclear weapons, and they should be feared. The Emperor of Japan at the time, Emperor Hirohito, said in a statement of surrender that this was a new and most cruel bomb. The impact of these weapons is glaringly evident in before and after images. Not only were lives taken, but livelihoods were destroyed. To this day, the final count remains uncertain. Photography has long held an important role in history, bringing both valuable information to academics and heart-wrenching stories to the public. As our technology has developed and will continue to do so, future historical events will be so heavily documented that historians will be spoiled for choice. But what do you make of these photographs and the history behind them? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.